Chapter 1. Cast into Darkness. The hands that shoved me weren't gentle. I stumbled forward, my bare feet scraping against jagged stones as the world tilted violently. Pain shot through my knees when I hit the ground, palms grinding into dirt and gravel. Behind me, laughter echoed, cruel, mocking, satisfied. Good riddance, wolfless freak. I didn't look back. I'd learned long ago that looking back only prolonged the humiliation. My chest heaved as I dragged myself to my knees, tasting blood where I'd bitten my tongue. The iron tang mixed with the salt of tears I refused to let fall in front of them. "This is where you belong, Sarah." Another voice called out. Garrett, my former Alpha's son, the man who'd promised me forever 3 months ago before the truth came out. Before everyone discovered I was defective, broken, an Omega without a wolf. With the other discarded things, maybe the Shadow Beast will do us all a favor and finish what nature started. More laughter, then footsteps retreating, then silence. I stayed on my knees, trembling, until I was certain they were gone. Only then did I lift my head and survey my prison. The Forbidden Valley stretched before me like a wound in the earth, a deep, impossibly dark chasm that legend said had no bottom. Twisted trees grew at impossible angles from the cliff faces, their branches bare and reaching like skeletal fingers. Mist clung to everything, thick and cold, carrying whispers that might have been wind or might have been something far worse. They dumped me at the entrance, on a narrow ledge that overlooked the abyss. Behind me, the path back to Silverpaw territory was already invisible in the fog. Ahead there was only darkness and the stories we'd all been raised on. Tales of the thing that lived in the valley's depths. The Shadow Beast. The curse that walked on 2 legs and 4. The monster that even the strongest alphas feared. At least it will be quick, I thought distantly. Better than starving. Better than crawling back and begging. I'd done enough begging. My throat tightened as I remembered the trial. The way they'd all stared at me. Pack members I'd grown up with, children I'd helped raise, women I'd considered sisters. All of them silent as the council declared me an abomination. All of them looking away when Garrett announced he was breaking our bond. Such as it was. We'd never completed the mating ritual, thank the moon. He'd wanted to wait until after the ceremony. Now I knew why. He'd suspected. Defective bloodline, the pack healer had pronounced, her face carefully neutral. The wolf gene is dormant, possibly absent entirely. She'll never shift, never contribute to the pack's strength. Never be worthy. I pushed to my feet, swaying. My thin dress, the same one they'd dressed me in for what was supposed to be my mating ceremony, was torn and dirty now. My dark hair had come loose from its braids, falling in tangled waves around my shoulders. I had no shoes, no supplies, no weapon. Nothing but the stubborn, furious beat of my too human heart. "Fine," I whispered to the darkness. "Fine. If they wanted me gone, I'd go. But I wouldn't die here on this ledge like some whimpering sacrifice. If the Shadow Beast wanted me, it would have to come find me." I started walking. The path into the valley was treacherous, more of a suggestion than an actual trail. Roots jutted up to catch my feet. Rocks crumbled under my weight. The mist grew thicker with every step until I was navigating by touch alone, one hand trailing along the cold stone wall of the cliff face. Time lost meaning. Minutes or hours could have passed. My legs ached. My feet bled. The cold seeped into my bones until I couldn't remember what warmth felt like. But I kept going. Because stopping meant thinking. And thinking meant remembering the look on my mother's face when the council had cast their vote. The way she'd turned away, choosing her place in the pack over her defective daughter. The way my father hadn't even attended the trial. The way Garrett had smiled when they'd dragged me away. Wolfless freak. Abomination. discarded thing. I was so lost in bitter memories that I almost didn't notice when the path leveled out, when the mist began to thin, when the oppressive darkness gave way to something else, a faint, silvery glow that seemed to emanate from the valley floor itself. I stopped, breath catching. I'd reached the bottom. The forbidden valley opened before me like a secret world. Bioluminescent moss covered every surface, painting everything in shades of ethereal blue and silver. Strange flowers grew in clusters, their petals translucent and glowing. A stream cut through the center, its water so clear it looked like liquid starlight. It was beautiful. It was impossible. It was nothing like the horror stories we'd been told. I took a tentative step forward, then another. The soft moss cushioned my bleeding feet. The air here was warmer, almost welcoming. In the distance, I could see what looked like ancient ruins, stone structures half reclaimed by nature, covered in vines and flowering plants that shouldn't exist in a place that never saw the sun. Maybe I was hallucinating. Maybe I died on the path down and this was some kind of afterlife. Maybe. The growl came from everywhere and nowhere. Low, resonant, vibrating through the ground beneath my feet and the air around me. It raised every hair on my body and sent my heart hammering into my throat. I spun, searching for the source, but saw only shadows. Shadows that moved. Shadows that breathed. "I don't want trouble," I called out, hating how my voice shook. They threw me away. I'm nobody. I'm nothing." The growl came again, closer this time. And then I saw it. Eyes. Massive, luminous eyes the color of molten gold, watching me from the darkness between the ruins. They were set in a face I couldn't quite make out, something between wolf and man and nightmare. Something huge. The shadow beast. Every instinct I didn't know I possessed screamed at me to run, but there was nowhere to go. The cliff was at my back. The creature was in front of me. And I was so tired of running. So instead, I did the only thing I could think of. I held out my hand. "Please," I whispered. "If you're going to kill me, make it quick. I've had enough pain for one lifetime." The golden eyes blinked. Once. Twice. Then, impossibly, the beast moved forward into the light. And my world changed forever. Chapter 2. The Beast Who Didn't Kill. The creature that emerged from the shadows was not what I expected. Yes, it was massive, easily twice the size of any wolf I'd ever seen, with shoulders that stood level with my chest. Yes, its form was wrong somehow, caught between shapes, muscles rippling beneath fur that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. And yes, those golden eyes held an intelligence that was distinctly, disturbingly human. But it didn't attack. It stopped just beyond my outstretched hand, head lowered, those impossible eyes fixed on my face with an intensity that made my breath catch. Up close, I could see the details the darkness had hidden, the silver scars that crisscrossed its dark fur, the way its ears were pinned back not in aggression, but something else. Uncertainty, maybe. Or pain. We stared at each other for what felt like an eternity. "You're not going to kill me," I whispered, and it wasn't a question. I didn't know how I knew, but I did. The same way I knew that despite everything I'd been taught, despite every warning and horror story, this creature wasn't a mindless monster. It was suffering. The beast's ears flicked forward at my voice. Then slowly, so slowly I might have imagined it, it lowered its head further. Not in submission, in offering. My hand trembled as I closed the distance between us. My fingers hovered over the space between its ears, and for a heartbeat I hesitated. This was insane. This was the shadow beast, the curse of the Forbidden Valley, the thing that had killed countless wolves foolish enough to enter its territory. But those eyes, gods, those eyes held so much pain. I touched it, The fur was softer than I expected, warm and dense beneath my palm. The beast went completely still, not even breathing, as if afraid the slightest movement would shatter this fragile moment. I felt the rapid thunder of its heartbeat, impossibly fast, impossibly strong. And then I felt something else. A jolt that ran from my fingertips straight to my core, like electricity, like recognition, like something clicking into place that I hadn't even known was broken. The beast made a sound. Not quite a growl, not quite a whimper. Its eyes closed, and its massive body seemed to sag with something that looked heartbreakingly like relief. "What are you?" I breathed. When it opened its eyes again, they were different, more focused, more present. It pulled back slowly, carefully, and I let my hand fall. Then it did something that made my heart stop. It looked toward the ruins, looked back at me, looked at the ruins again. "You want me to follow you?" One ear flicked. Those golden eyes met mine with unmistakable intent. Every survival instinct I possessed said this was a trap. Said I should run, climb, do anything but follow a predator deeper into its lair. But the same inexplicable certainty that had made me reach out in the first place whispered that this creature, whatever it was, meant me no harm. And really, what did I have to lose? "All right," I said quietly. "Lead the way." The beast turned and began padding toward the ruins, its gait smooth despite its size. I followed, my bleeding feet leaving faint prints on the glowing moss. Now that the immediate terror had faded, I could feel every ache, every bruise, the bone-deep exhaustion that came from a day that had started with hope and ended with exile. The ruins were larger than they'd appeared from a distance. Stone archways that might once have been grand now stood weathered and broken, covered in those strange, luminescent vines. The beast led me through what must have been a courtyard, past a dried fountain, toward a structure that was more intact than the others. Something like a temple or manor house, its walls still mostly standing. Inside, it was warmer, drier. The floor was covered in soft pelts and what looked like salvaged fabrics, arranged almost like a nest in the center of the main chamber. A fire pit had been built from stones, though it was cold now, and along one wall, I saw things that made my breath catch. Books, dozens of them, stacked carefully. Human things, a bent cup, a rusted knife, a tarnished mirror. Things that suggested whoever lived here had once been more than a beast. The creature padded to the nest of furs and turned to look at me expectantly. "You want me to rest," I said slowly. "You brought me to your home." It lowered itself onto its haunches, watching me with those unnerving, intelligent eyes. I should have been terrified. Instead, I felt tears burning behind my eyes. Because this creature, this supposed monster, had shown me more kindness in 10 minutes than my entire pack had in the last 3 months. "Thank you," I whispered. I crossed to the nest on shaking legs and collapsed onto the furs. They were softer than anything I'd slept on in weeks. The pack had moved me to the Omega quarters after they'd discovered my condition. A windowless room with a thin mat on the floor. This felt like luxury. I curled onto my side, and my body finally gave in to the trauma of the day. Sobs tore from my throat. Ugly, broken sounds I'd been holding back since they'd dragged me before the council. I cried for the life I'd lost, the future that had been stolen, the family who'd abandoned me. I cried for the girl I'd been just hours ago, who'd actually believed she might still be worthy of love. I didn't hear the beast move, but suddenly I felt warmth at my back. The massive creature had curled around me, not touching but close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from its body. Close enough that I could hear its steady breathing. Close enough to be a comfort without being a threat. "I don't understand," I choked out between sobs. Why are you being kind to me? Everyone else said I was worthless. Broken. Why would you care? The beast made a low, rumbling sound, almost like a purr, though wolves didn't purr. The vibration of it soothed something deep in my chest. I closed my eyes, exhaustion finally winning over emotion. My last conscious thought before sleep claimed me was that those golden eyes looked almost familiar. Chapter 3. Morning in the Valley. I woke to warmth and the smell of smoke. For a disoriented moment, I thought I was back in my childhood room, that the last 3 months had been a nightmare. Then I shifted, felt the softness of furs beneath me instead of my thin mat, and reality crashed back. The Forbidden Valley, the Shadow Beast. Everything I'd lost. I sat up slowly, wincing at the protest of bruised muscles. Pale light filtered through gaps in the stone walls. Not sunlight exactly, but that same ethereal glow the valley seemed to generate on its own. The fire pit now burned with a low flame, and beside it sat a wooden bowl filled with what looked like water, and another containing berries I recognized as edible. The beast was gone. I felt its absence like a physical thing, which was absurd. I'd known the creature for mere hours, and yet the space seemed emptier without that massive presence, those watchful golden eyes. I dragged myself to the fire and drank deeply from the water bowl, then ate the berries one by one. They were sweet and tart, bursting with juice that soothed my raw throat. Someone, something, had gathered these for me, had built this fire while I slept, had cared whether I lived or died. The kindness of it made my chest ache. I was examining my torn feet, wondering if there was anything I could use as bandages, when I heard it. A sound like stone scraping against stone, coming from deeper within the ruins. I froze, pulse jumping. Then the beast emerged from a darkened doorway I hadn't noticed the night before. In the better light, I could see more details. The fur that had seemed black was actually deepest charcoal, shot through with silver that caught the glow of the bioluminescent moss. The scars were everywhere. Claw marks, bite marks, what looked like burns. This creature had survived things that should have killed it. It carried something in its mouth. When it reached me, it lowered its head and dropped the item at my feet. A blanket. Threadbare but clean, the fabric worn soft with age. For me? My voice came out hoarse. The beast's tail moved once. Not quite a wag, but close. I found myself smiling despite everything. Thank you. I picked up the blanket, and that's when I saw what was underneath it. Strips of cloth that might serve as bandages, and a small clay pot that smelled of healing herbs when I opened it. My throat tightened. You're taking care of me. Those golden eyes watched me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. Then the beast did something that shocked me. It sat back on its haunches and lifted one massive paw, placing it carefully over its chest, over its heart. A gesture, deliberate, human. You're not just a beast, are you? I whispered. You're trapped, cursed. The paw pressed harder against its chest, and a sound escaped it, something between a whine and a growl, laced with such profound sadness that tears sprang to my eyes. How long? I asked. How long have you been like this? It couldn't answer. Not in words, but those eyes spoke volumes. Years of isolation, of loss, of being feared and forgotten. I understood that loneliness, that specific agony of being cast out by everyone who should have loved you. We're both outcasts, I said softly. Both thrown away. The beast's ears flicked forward, and it took a step closer, then another, until it was near enough that I could feel its breath, warm against my face. This close, I could see flecks of amber in those golden irises. Could see intelligence and emotion swirling in depths that should have been animal, but weren't. Slowly, giving it every chance to pull away, I reached up and placed my palm against its muzzle. The reaction was immediate. The beast's eyes fell closed and it leaned into my touch, a shudder running through its entire massive frame. That same electric sensation from the night before sparked between us, stronger now, more insistent, like a thread being woven, connecting us in ways I couldn't explain. "What's your name?" I asked, knowing it couldn't answer but needing to ask anyway. "You had one, didn't you? Before this happened?" The beast pulled back and moved to one of the walls. Using its claws with surprising delicacy, it scraped at the moss covering the stone. I stood and followed, watching as it revealed something underneath. Markings. Old ones, carved deep into the rock. They looked like letters, but in a script I didn't recognize. Something ancient, predating even the oldest pack records I'd seen. "I can't read this," I admitted. "I'm sorry, I only know common script." The beast made a frustrated sound, then tried something else. It moved to a clear patch of dirt floor near the fire and began dragging one claw through it deliberately. Lines appeared, crude, but purposeful. A letter. K. Then another. A. My heart began to pound as more letters took shape. K-A-E-L. "Kale," I breathed. "Your name is Kale." The beast, Kale, went utterly still. Then it looked at me with such raw emotion that I had to look away, or risk breaking down completely. How long had it been since anyone had spoken his name? Since anyone had seen him as more than a monster? "Kale," I repeated, letting the name roll off my tongue. It felt right somehow. Familiar, though I couldn't say why. "I'm Sarah." He moved closer again, and this time when he lowered his head, I wrapped my arms around his massive neck without thinking. His fur was soft against my cheek, and I felt, rather than heard, the rumble that went through him. Contentment, maybe. Or relief. "I don't know what happened to you," I whispered into his fur. "I don't know why you're here or how long you've been alone. But you're not alone anymore. I promise." It was a foolish promise. I was just a broken omega with no wolf, no pack, no power. What could I possibly offer a cursed shifter trapped in beast form? But Kale made that rumbling sound again and carefully, so carefully, wrapped his head around to rest his muzzle against my shoulder. And somehow, in that moment, my promise felt like the truest thing I'd ever said. We stayed like that until the fire burned low, two outcasts finding something neither of us expected in the depths of the Forbidden Valley. Hope. Chapter 4. Learning his language. The days that followed fell into a rhythm I hadn't expected. Gentle, almost domestic, though nothing about my situation was normal. Kale hunted in the mornings, bringing back fresh game that he somehow knew to cook before offering it to me. He'd disappear into the deeper parts of the valley and return with armfuls of the glowing plants, arranging them around our space until the ruins looked less like a prison and more like a sanctuary. And slowly, carefully, we learned to communicate. It started with simple gestures. One paw raised meant yes. Two meant no. A tilt of his head meant he wanted me to follow. A soft huff meant danger. Though what could be dangerous in a valley where he was supposedly the greatest threat, I didn't know. But it evolved into something more. On the third day, I was sitting by the fire trying to tend to my healing feet, when Kale padded over and dropped a piece of charcoal beside me. The same charcoal he'd used to write his name. "You want me to write something?" I asked. One paw up. Yes. I picked up the charcoal and looked at the smooth stone floor. "What should I write?" He made a frustrated sound, then moved to the wall where those ancient markings were carved. He touched them with his nose, then looked back at me. You want me to learn your language? Understanding dawned. The old script. Yes. So we began. Each day, he would show me symbols from the walls, then write their common tongue equivalents in the dirt. Some were letters. Others were whole words or concepts. The language was beautiful, flowing and complex, nothing like the harsh, angular script my pack used. This one means moon, I said on the 5th day, tracing the elegant curves. And this is blood. And this... I paused, staring at a symbol that appeared over and over throughout the key. Ruins. What is this one? Kyle went very still. Then slowly, deliberately, he wrote in the dirt. King. King, I repeated. My eyes widened as I looked around the ruins with new understanding. This was a palace. Kale, were you royalty? He turned away, shoulders tense, and I knew I'd struck something painful. But after a moment, he moved back to the dirt and added more letters. Alpha King. My breath caught. You were an Alpha King? Of which pack? He scraped away the words and wrote again, the movements sharp with old anger. All of them. All... I stared at him, my mind reeling. You ruled all the packs? But that's just legend. The stories say the last Alpha King died centuries ago, that the position was dissolved when... I stopped, ice flooding my veins as pieces clicked into place. The ancient ruins, the old language, the way even the strongest alphas feared this valley. When he was cursed, I finished in a whisper. The last Alpha King was cursed and banished to the Forbidden Valley. That's you. Gods, Kale, how long have you been here? He wrote a number that made my heart break. 300. 300 years. Alone. Trapped in a form that stripped away his ability to speak, to shift, to be recognized as anything but a monster. 3 centuries of isolation while the world forgot he'd ever been a man. What happened? I asked softly. Who did this to you? But he shook his head and scraped the dirt clean. Not ready to share that yet. Maybe not sure I'd believe him. Maybe still too raw, even after 300 years. I wanted to push, but I understood the need to keep some wounds covered until they were ready to be exposed. So instead, I asked, can it be broken? The curse? Kale went very still. Then, slowly, he wrote, Maybe. Maybe, I repeated. What would it take? He hesitated for a long moment, and I watched something that looked like fear flicker through those golden eyes. Then he wrote words that changed everything. True mate, willing bond. My mouth went dry. A true mate bond? But those are rare. Fated. You'd have to find... I stopped as he turned those intense eyes on me, and suddenly the air between us felt charged with something I'd been trying not to name. That electric pull. That sense of recognition. The way my skin hummed whenever he was near. The way I felt incomplete when he left. The way his touch felt like coming home. No, I whispered, shaking my head. That's impossible. I'm wolfless, broken. I can't be anyone's mate, let alone a true mate. The bond requires both wolves to... Kyle moved forward until he was directly in front of me, so close I could see my reflection in his eyes. Then he did something he'd never done before. He shifted his weight and pressed his forehead to mine, gentle and deliberate. The sensation that rolled through me was overwhelming, like a door opening inside my chest, like something dormant suddenly stretching and waking. For just a moment, I could have sworn I felt something else, something wild and fierce that had been sleeping deep in my soul. A wolf. My wolf. But that was impossible. The healers had tested me, had declared me empty, had said... Kyle pulled back and returned to his writing, his movements urgent now. They lied. What? Your wolf sleeps. Not gone. Hidden. I stared at the words, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. How would you know that? How could you possibly? He wrote faster. I feel her. She calls to me. Has since you arrived. That's why. I breathed. That's why I survived the valley. Why you didn't attack. Why this feels so... I couldn't finish the sentence. Couldn't voice what we both knew. Kyle wrote one more word, and it hung between us like a confession. Ours. The weight of it settled over me. This wasn't chance. This wasn't luck. Whatever force had guided me to survive being cast out, to stumble into this specific valley, to touch this specific beast, it was fate. The same fate that had supposedly died out with the old ways. The same mystical bond the modern packs claimed was just superstition. I don't understand, I said, my voice breaking. Why me? Why would fate bond a cursed king to a broken Omega? Kale made a sound low in his chest, then gently, so gently, pressed his muzzle against my palm. When I looked into his eyes, I saw the answer even before he turned to write it. Not broken. Perfect. Tears spilled down my cheeks. No one had ever called me perfect. No one had ever looked at me the way Kale was looking at me now, like I was precious, powerful, exactly what I was meant to be. If this is real, I whispered, if we really are true mates, what happens now? He wrote 3 words that made my pulse race. You choose me. Not a demand, not an expectation, a hope. After 300 years alone, this powerful king was asking, not commanding, if I would choose him. And God's help me, I already knew my answer. Chapter 5. Awakening. I couldn't sleep that night. Long after Kale had settled into his usual position beside the firs, close enough to protect, far enough to give me space, I lay awake, staring at the bioluminescent patterns dancing across the stone ceiling. Your wolf sleeps. Not gone. Hidden. The words circled my mind like a prayer and a curse. For months I'd mourned the absence of my wolf, had felt incomplete and hollow without that essential part of my being. I'd accepted the healer's verdict, had believed myself fundamentally broken. But what if they'd lied? What if my pack had known all along that my wolf was simply dormant, and they'd used that against me? To cast me out, to get rid of an Omega who apparently had a destiny they hadn't wanted me to fulfill? The questions burned, but beneath them was something else. Something that had started as a flutter when Kale pressed his forehead to mine, and had been growing steadily stronger ever since. A presence, deep inside, in a place I'd thought empty. She calls to me, Kyle had written. Has since you arrived. I sat up slowly, careful not to wake him, and moved to the fire. Its glow cast flickering shadows across the ancient walls, across Kale's sleeping form. Even in rest, he was magnificent, powerful and deadly, but somehow gentle with me. Only with me. My hand drifted to my chest, pressing over my heart. Are you there? I whispered to the darkness inside me. If you're real, if you've been hiding all this time, I need you. Please. Nothing. Just the steady beat of my too human heart. Sarah. I gasped and spun. Kyle was awake, watching me with those luminous eyes, but something was different. The air around him seemed to shimmer, and for just a moment, less than a heartbeat, I saw something else overlaid on his beast form. A man. Tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair that fell to his shoulders and those same devastating golden eyes. Scars traced across bronze skin, and his face held the kind of hard-earned strength that came from surviving the unsurvivable. He was beautiful and terrifying and gone before I could fully process what I'd seen. Kyle? My voice shook. Did you just... was that... He rose and padded toward me, and the shimmer happened again. Another flicker of the man beneath the beast, there and gone like a trick of the light. But it had been real. I'd seen his true form, if only for an instant. He stopped in front of me and lowered his head. Then, deliberately, he took my hand in his mouth, gentle, careful not to let his teeth touch skin, and tugged. "You want me to come with you?" One paw raised. Yes. He led me out of our shelter, through the ruins, deeper into the valley than I'd ventured before. The bioluminescent plants grew thicker here, painting everything in shades of blue and silver. The stream we'd been following widened into a pool, its surface perfectly still and reflecting the glow like a mirror. Kyle stopped at the water's edge and released my hand. Then he looked at me, at the pool, back at me. "You want me to go in?" "Yes." "It's freezing, Kale. I don't have anything to—" He made an insistent sound, then did something unexpected. He waded into the pool himself, his massive form displacing water that glowed where it rippled. Once he was chest deep, he turned back to me and waited. The message was clear. Trust me. I did. Against all logic, all self-preservation, I trusted this cursed king more than I'd trusted anyone in my entire life. I unlaced my tattered dress and let it fall, wearing only my thin undergarments. The moment my foot touched the water, I gasped, not from cold, but from warmth. The pool was heated, like a natural spring, and as I waded deeper, I felt something else. Power. Magic. Ancient and wild and calling to something inside me. "What is this place?" I breathed. Kyle moved closer, circling me slowly. The water made his dark fur sleek, made his movements fluid and hypnotic. When he completed the circle, he stopped directly in front of me and pressed his muzzle to my sternum. Right over my heart. The sensation was immediate and overwhelming. Heat bloomed beneath his touch, spreading through my chest like wildfire. The presence I'd felt earlier surged forward, no longer a flutter but a roar. Something inside me clawed its way toward consciousness, desperate and fierce and mine. "Oh gods!" I gasped, my knees buckling. Kyle moved instantly, his body supporting mine, keeping my head above water. "Kale, something's happening. I can feel... She's there, she's really there, she's..." Pain lanced through me, sharp and bright. I cried out, clutching at Kale's fur as my body convulsed. It felt like something was being torn open inside me, like chains I hadn't known existed were shattering one by one. "Let me out." A voice growled in my mind, my voice, but not. Wilder. Fiercer. "Let me out." "I don't know how," I sobbed. "I don't know what to do." Kale pulled back just enough to look into my eyes, and then he did something that stopped my heart. He shifted, not fully, not completely, but enough. His muzzle shortened, his body compressed, and for a handful of seconds he was almost human. His hand, his actual hand, cupped my face, thumb brushing away my tears. "Choose," he said, his voice rough and broken from centuries of disuse, but real. So beautifully, impossibly real. "Choose us. Choose this. Choose yourself." Then he was beast again, the effort clearly costing him. He staggered slightly, and I grabbed his fur to steady him even as my own body threatened to tear itself apart. Choose. I'd spent my entire life being chosen or rejected by others. Chosen for the Omega Quarters, rejected as Garrett's mate. Chosen for exile, cast out like garbage. No one had ever asked me to choose myself. "Yes," I whispered. Then louder, my voice ringing across the sacred pool. "Yes, I choose this. I choose him. I choose me." The world exploded into light. Power erupted from the pool, from the earth, from the very air around us. I screamed as my wolf surged forward with the force of a tidal wave. 3 months. No, years. Maybe my entire life, of suppression finally breaking. She was magnificent and furious and desperate to run, to hunt, to claim what was ours. Kale's howl joined mine, triumph and relief, and something deeper. The curse shuddered around him, cracks appearing in invisible chains. And in that moment, I understood. My wolf hadn't been absent. She'd been waiting. Waiting for me to be cast out, to find this valley, to meet the one soul in all the world who would see me not as broken, but as exactly who I was meant to be. Waiting for me to choose myself so I could choose him. The transformation didn't complete. Not yet. The curse was too strong, too old. But as the light faded and I collapsed against Kale's solid warmth, both of us shaking with exhaustion and wonder, I felt my wolf settle inside me, awake, alert, and absolutely certain we'd found our mate. Chapter 6. 2 Souls, 1 Heart. The next few days were a revelation. My wolf, I still marveled at the reality of her, was restless and curious, constantly pressing against my consciousness. She didn't speak in words exactly, but I felt her emotions, her instincts, her fierce protectiveness over the male who'd helped wake her. Ours, she would whisper whenever Kyle was near. Protect. Keep. Mate. I don't know how to shift, I admitted to Kyle one morning as we sat by the stream. He'd brought me fish for breakfast, already cooked over the fire, and was watching me with those patient golden eyes. I can feel her, but I don't know how to let her out. He stood and moved a short distance away, then looked back at me. An invitation. You want to teach me? Yes. I joined him in an open area of the courtyard, my heart pounding with nervous excitement. Kale circled me once, then twice, his movements deliberate and slow. Then he stopped and closed his eyes. I watched in fascination as his body seemed to concentrate, to compress. The shimmer I'd seen before intensified, and for several heartbeats, he held a form that was neither beast nor man, but something caught between. The effort made him tremble, and before I could reach for him, he was fully beast again, panting hard. Kale, don't hurt yourself, I said, rushing to his side. You don't have to. He shook his head firmly and nudged me back to the center of the courtyard. Then he wrote in the dirt, Your turn. Feel her. Let go. Let go, I repeated. Easier said than done. But I closed my eyes and reached inward, toward that bright presence that had taken up residence in my chest. Hello, I thought tentatively. Will you show me how? My wolf surged forward with enthusiasm, and I gasped as I felt my body begin to change. My hands tingled, my spine arched, and for a glorious moment I felt fur rippling across my skin. Then nothing. The shift stuttered and died, leaving me gasping and frustrated on my hands and knees. I can't, I choked out. I'm too weak, or she's still too... Kale was there instantly, pressing his forehead to mine the way he'd done in the pool. The contact sent warmth flooding through me, and I felt my wolf calm, felt her lean into his presence. He helps, she murmured. He makes us stronger. Show me again, I whispered. So he did. Over and over, Kale shifted partially, showing me the space between forms, the moment of surrender where you let your wolf take control. And each time, I tried. Each time I got a little further. A paw instead of a hand, a tail, fur across my shoulders. It was exhausting. It was exhilarating. And through it all, Kale never left my side. You're a good teacher, I said during a break, both of us lying in the grass as I caught my breath. Patient. I bet you were a good king. He made a sound that might have been agreement or modesty. Then, hesitantly, he began to write. I tried to be. United the packs. Ended wars. They feared me, but respected. He stopped, scraping away the words. What happened? I asked softly. Who cursed you? Kale was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he began to write a story that made my blood run cold. Council of Alphas, jealous of power, Hired dark witch. She offered me a choice. What choice? Give up throne or watch my mate die? My heart clenched. You had a mate before? Yes, Arya. Gentle, kind. They took her. Threatened to kill her slowly if I didn't abdicate. So you gave up everything, I breathed, to save her. I tried, but the witch lied, killed her anyway, cursed me as I held her body, said I would never know love again, would never be human again, would be forgotten. Tears streamed down my face as I read. 300 years of grief. 300 years of being trapped with the memory of his mate's murder, unable to speak her name, unable to honor her properly. I'm sorry, I whispered, wrapping my arms around his massive neck. I'm so sorry. He leaned into my embrace, and I felt his pain like a physical thing. But beneath it, I felt something else. A question he was too afraid to ask. You're wondering if I'm just a replacement, I said quietly. If this bond is real, or just the curse trying to trick you again. He pulled back, and those golden eyes held such vulnerability, it took my breath away. I took his face in my hands. Kyle, I didn't know Arya. I can't replace her, and I won't try to. She was your mate, and you loved her, and that's part of who you are. I pressed my forehead to his. But this, what we have, it's real. I feel it in every cell of my body. My wolf knows you're ours, not because of convenience or proximity, but because our souls recognize each other. He made a broken sound, and I felt wetness against my palms. He was crying. The curse said you'd never know love again, I continued, my voice fierce. But maybe that's the loophole. Maybe it has to be a love you choose freely, without coercion. Maybe that's why the witch's curse didn't account for someone like me. Someone the packs threw away. Someone with no status or power to gain from binding to you. I pulled back to look at him fully. I don't want your throne, Kale. I don't want your title or your territory. I just want you. The male who's been gentle with me. Who sees me as whole instead of broken. Who makes me feel like I'm exactly who I'm supposed to be. Kale surged forward, nuzzling into my hair, my neck, my shoulders, scenting me, marking me, claiming me in the way of wolves. And my wolf rose up to meet him, purring her contentment. Ours, she sang. Forever ours. When he finally pulled back, there was something different in his eyes. Not the shadow of grief that would always be there, a part of his story, but something new. Hope. Real, tangible hope that maybe, just maybe, he could have a future again. He wrote one more message in the dirt, and my heart nearly burst. Teach me to love again. Yes, I promised. And you'll teach me to be brave. Deal? He pressed his muzzle to my palm in answer, and I felt the mate bond between us strengthen, solidify, become something neither curse nor distance nor time could break. We still had obstacles. The curse wasn't broken, not completely. I still couldn't fully shift. And somewhere beyond this valley, my old pack believed me dead. But as Kale and I lay together under the bioluminescent glow, his massive body curled protectively around mine, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. Whatever came next, we would face it together. Chapter 7. Shadows at the Border. I woke to Kale's low growl, a sound I'd never heard from him before, deep and threatening, vibrating with barely contained violence. Kale? I sat up, instantly alert. My wolf stirred uneasily inside me, sensing his distress. What's wrong? He was at the entrance to our shelter, every muscle tensed, hackles raised. His golden eyes were fixed on something beyond the ruins, toward the valley's edge where the path led up to the outside world, the world I'd left behind. I moved to his side, and that's when I smelled it. Wolves. Multiple wolves. The scent was faint but unmistakable, drifting down from the cliffs above. They've come to the valley, I breathed. But why? No one comes here. They're all terrified of... I stopped, looking at Kyle. Of you. He turned to me and I saw conflict warring in his eyes. Then he moved to our usual writing spot and scraped out words with unusual urgency. They seek something. Someone. Me? My stomach dropped. They're looking for me, but I'm supposed to be dead. They threw me down here to die. Not dead enough. Before I could process that, Kale's head snapped up. Another growl rumbled from his chest, and this time I heard what he'd sensed. Voices. Distant but growing closer. Male voices, calling out in the systematic pattern of a search party. Sarah, we know you're down here. I recognized that voice. Garrett. My former betrothed had come to the Forbidden Valley. We need to hide, I said, reaching for Kale. If they see you, if they think you've hurt me. But Kale shook his head firmly and wrote, They cannot have you. I don't want them to have me, I assured him. But Kale, they'll try to kill you. A whole pack against... You are mine. He scraped the words deep into the earth. I protect what is mine. The possessiveness in those words sent a thrill through me even as fear tightened my chest. My wolf surged forward, in complete agreement with her mate. Let them come, she snarled. Let them try to take us from him. There! Another voice, younger, one of Garrett's friends. Movement in the ruins! We were out of time. Kale moved in front of me, placing his massive body between me and the approaching wolves. I could see them now, 6 figures descending the treacherous path with the confidence of trained warriors. Garrett led them, his russet fur gleaming even in the valley's strange light. He'd shifted for the hunt. They all had. 6 full-grown male wolves, all larger and stronger than I could ever hope to be, even if I could complete my transformation. And they were coming for me. Stay behind me, I whispered to Kale, knowing it was futile. Please, don't let them provoke you into... But he'd already moved forward, placing himself at the entrance to the courtyard. A warning, a line in the moss that screamed, no further. The hunting party stopped, and I watched recognition and terror ripple through them as they realized what they were facing. Several whimpered. One actually backed up a step. But Garrett stood his ground. He shifted back to human form. A show of dominance, of fearlessness. He was naked, as was customary after a shift, but he wore his confidence like armor. Shadow Beast, he called out, his voice steady despite the fear I could smell on him. We mean you no harm. We've come only for the girl, the Omega. She belongs to our pack. Kale's growl intensified, and I felt the ground vibrate with it. She's ours, Garrett continued. We cast her out, yes, but we've reconsidered. Her family misses her. We're willing to take her back to... Liar. The word left my mouth before I could stop it. I stepped out from behind Kale, ignoring his warning huff. You're a liar, Garrett. My family didn't send you. They couldn't care less if I lived or died. Garrett's eyes found mine, and I saw calculation in them. Sarah, thank the moon, you're alive. When we threw you down here, we thought, we hoped, but we had to be sure. Sure of what? That you'd survive, a new voice said, and my blood turned to ice. The pack healer, Margot, stepped forward from behind the group. She'd stayed in human form, her silver hair bound back, her face grave. That your wolf would wake. You knew, I breathed. You always knew my wolf was just dormant. Of course we knew. Margot's expression held no remorse. Your bloodline is old, child. Ancient. Your great-grandmother was a moon blessed, one of the old oracles who could see fate threads. That power runs in your veins, and it makes your wolf unique. What does that have to do with anything? Everything, Garrett said, and now I heard the hunger in his voice. A moon. Blessed Omega bonded to an alpha creates offspring of incredible power. When the healers discovered what you were, the council decided you were too valuable to waste on a simple mating. We needed to wait until your wolf woke. Horror washed over me. You threw me into the valley knowing I might survive. You wanted me desperate and alone, so I'd be grateful when you came back. We wanted you ready, Margot corrected. The trauma of near death would wake your wolf faster than any ritual. And it worked, didn't it? I can see it in you now. You're complete. She's right, Garrett said, taking a step forward. Kale's growl rose to a roar, but Garrett didn't stop. Come home, Sarah. Be my mate properly this time. Your wolf has woken. You're not defective anymore. The pack will welcome you. Your family will welcome you. And if I refuse? Garrett's smile turned cold. Then we invoke the old laws. You're still a member of Silverpaw Pack by birth. That means you're subject to pack law, which states that any unmated Omega can be claimed by her alpha's bloodline. He gestured to himself. That's me, sweetheart. I can force the bond whether you want it or not. Rage exploded through me. Mine and my wolf's combined. You have no right. I have every right. Garrett's eyes flashed. You think you can stay here? Living with a cursed beast in this forgotten valley? You're meant for more than this, Sarah. You're meant to strengthen our pack, to give us powerful children, to... He stopped mid-sentence as Kale moved. It wasn't a lunge or an attack. Kale simply walked forward with deadly calm until he stood directly beside me, his massive shoulder pressing against my hip. Then he did something that made the entire hunting party freeze. He shifted. Not fully. The curse wouldn't allow it. But enough. His body compressed, his features becoming more human, and for several heartbeats he stood in that in-between form, part man, part beast, towering and terrifying and magnificent. When he spoke, his voice was a growl that resonated with 300 years of authority. She is mine. The hunting party scrambled backward, terror overriding training. Even Garrett went pale. But Margot stared at Kale with dawning recognition. Impossible, she whispered. The Alpha King. The legends said he was just a beast, but you're shifting. You're breaking free. Kale's golden eyes never left Garrett. She is my true mate. Mine by choice. Mine by bond. Mine by every law that predates your petty pack politics. His form wavered, the effort clearly costing him. Touch her, and I will remind the world why they once feared me. Then he was fully beast again, panting hard from the exertion. But the message had been delivered. Garrett stared at us, calculation warring with rage on his face. Finally, he said, "This isn't over. The council will hear about this, and next time, we'll bring more than 6 wolves." Next time, I said, my voice steady despite my pounding heart. You'll find 2 wolves waiting, because by then, I'll have learned to shift. And I promise you, Garrett, I'll never be your anything. The hunting party retreated, but I saw the look Margot gave me before she left. Not anger, curiosity, and that terrified me more than Garrett's threats ever could. Chapter 8. The Price of Power. Kale collapsed the moment they were out of sight. Kale! I dropped to my knees beside him, my hands running over his fur, searching for injury. What's wrong? What can I do? He was breathing hard, his whole body trembling with exhaustion. The partial shift had cost him more than I'd realized. When he finally lifted his head, his eyes were dulled with pain. You overdid it, I said, fighting panic. You pushed too hard and now... He huffed dismissively and tried to stand, but his legs buckled. I caught his massive head before it hit the ground, cradling him in my lap as best I could. Stubborn male, I whispered, tears pricking my eyes. You can't protect me if you destroy yourself doing it. His golden eyes met mine, and I saw the frustration there. The desperation. He'd been able to speak, to show them his true nature, and now he was trapped in beast form again. Maybe worse than before for having broken through temporarily. "Rest," I ordered, stroking his fur. "I'll keep watch. I promise they won't come back without warning." But even as I said it, I knew it was a temporary solution. Garrett would return. Next time with more wolves, more force, and if they invoked the old laws, if they brought the full council. I couldn't let that happen. Couldn't let them drag me back to be some breeding tool for their power games, which meant I had to get stronger. Fast. "We need to shift," my wolf growled in agreement. "We need to be able to fight beside our mate." Kale's breathing eventually steadied, deepening into sleep. I stayed with him until moonrise, not a full moon, but bright enough to cast silver shadows across the valley. Only then did I carefully extract myself and move to the courtyard. If I was going to learn to shift fully, I needed to do it now. While Kyle slept. While I had the fear and anger from Garrett's visit still burning in my veins. I closed my eyes and reached for my wolf. "Help me," I thought. "Show me how to let you free." She surged forward eagerly, and this time I didn't fight the sensations. I let my bones shift, let the pain wash through me, let fur ripple across my skin. My spine curved, my hands became paws, and I stumbled, falling to all fours as the shift completed. I'd done it. I'd actually shifted. My senses exploded with new information, scents I'd never noticed, sounds from miles away, the taste of magic in the air. I felt powerful and alive and finally whole. "Yes," my wolf sang. "This is what we are. This is who we've always been." I stayed in wolf form for hours, relearning my body, testing my new strength. I was smaller than Kale, slighter, but faster. My fur was dark like his, but shot through with silver that glowed in the valley's light. I looked like I belonged here, in this magical, forgotten place. When I finally shifted back, the sun was rising, or whatever passed for dawn in the valley. I was naked and exhausted and exhilarated. And Kale was awake, watching me from the shelter entrance. The look in his eyes made heat pool in my belly. Pride. Hunger. Possession. "I did it," I said, suddenly self-conscious about my nudity in a way I hadn't been before. I shifted. Fully. He patted toward me and pressed his muzzle to my forehead, my neck, my shoulders, scenting me in my new form. His rumble of approval vibrated through my whole body. Then he moved to his writing patch and scraped out words I'd been half expecting, half dreading. Time to complete the bond. My heart kicked against my ribs. The mate bond, the final step. Yes, only way to break curse fully. Only way to protect you from Garrett's claim. He was right. A completed mate bond would override any pack law, would make me his in a way no council could dispute. But it also meant, "Kale, you can't. Not in this form. You'd have to shift fully, become human again, and the curse. Bond might break curse, or curse might break from bond." He paused, then added, "Risk either way." "What if it doesn't work?" I asked quietly. "What if we complete the bond and you're still trapped? Still cursed?" Then he wrote something that made my throat tight. "Still worth it. To be yours completely." I knelt beside him, cupping his massive face in my hands. "I'm already yours. You know that. I want to hold you, touch you, speak to you without writing, make love to you as a man." The raw honesty of it stole my breath. I'd been trying not to think about that aspect, about the fact that despite our connection, despite our bond, we couldn't be together in the way mates were meant to be. Not while he was trapped in this form. "I want that too," I admitted. "More than I can say. but I'm afraid. What if the curse fights back? What if trying to complete the bond hurts you, or makes things worse, or... Kale pulled back and wrote with quick, certain strokes. Full moon. 3 nights. Curse weakest then. We try. 3 nights. 3 nights to prepare, to be sure, to make the choice that would bind us forever, or potentially destroy any hope of breaking his curse. And if I say no, I asked. If I say it's too dangerous? Then we wait. Find another way. His eyes held mine. Your choice. Always your choice. There it was again. That fundamental respect, that refusal to force or manipulate. Even now, when completing the bond could save us both, he left the decision in my hands. I thought about Garrett's threats, about being dragged back to be claimed by force, about spending my life as a vessel for someone else's ambitions instead of choosing my own destiny. I thought about Kyle's 300 years of loneliness, about Arya's murder, about how this male had lost everything once and was willing to risk losing everything again just to have a chance at freedom. I thought about my wolf, fully awake now, howling her certainty that this was right, that we were meant for this, that we could break the curse if we were brave enough to try. 3 nights, I agreed. On the full moon, we complete the bond. The relief and fear and hope that flashed through Kale's eyes mirrored my own. He moved closer, pressing his forehead to mine in the gesture that had become ours. 3 nights, my wolf whispered. 3 nights until we claim our mate and break our curse, or lose everything trying. I wrapped my arms around Kale's neck, breathing in his scent, feeling his heartbeat sync with mine. We had 3 days to prepare. 3 days to strengthen our bond as much as possible before we put everything on the line. 3 days until we discovered whether love could truly conquer a 300-year-old curse, or whether we were both damned to remain outcasts forever. Chapter 9. 3 Days of Forever. The first day, we trained. Kyle pushed me harder than I'd ever been pushed, teaching me to fight in wolf form. We circled each other in the courtyard, and despite his size advantage, I learned to use my speed. Learned to dodge, to feint, to go for vulnerable spots. Again, I panted after he'd pinned me for the 5th time. I need to be faster. He huffed his agreement and released me, but not before pressing his muzzle to my neck, a gesture of affection that made my wolf purr. He's holding back, she observed. Afraid to hurt us. She was right. Even in training, Kale's every movement was controlled, careful. He'd survived 300 years as a predator, but with me, he was gentle. Stop pulling your strikes, I said, shifting back to human form. The transformation was easier now, almost natural. If Garrett comes back with a war party, they won't hold back. You need to teach me how to survive against wolves who want to hurt me. Kyle shifted back too, just his head and shoulders, enough to write. The effort made him tremble, but he managed. Cannot hurt you. Would rather die. You won't hurt me, I assured him, touching his partially shifted face. The mix of human and beast was striking, his strong jaw covered in fur, those golden eyes now set in a more human face. But you need to trust that I'm stronger than you think. He held my gaze for a long moment, then nodded. The next round, he didn't hold back quite as much, and I had the bruises to prove it. But I also landed my first real hit, raking claws across his shoulder that drew blood. I shifted back immediately, horrified. Kyle, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to... But he was writing, and when I read the words, my heart soared. Perfect. You're ready. The second day, we explored. Kyle led me deeper into the valley than I'd ever gone, to places where the magic was thicker, older. We found ancient altars carved with the same script he'd taught me, telling stories of the Alpha King who'd united the packs. His story. You built all this, I said, running my fingers over stone that had stood for centuries. This valley was yours before it became your prison. He nodded, then showed me something that made me gasp. A chamber hidden behind a waterfall, its walls covered in murals. I saw Kale as he'd been, tall and powerful in human form, with that dark hair and those commanding eyes. Beside him was a woman with gentle features and flowing robes. "Arya," I whispered. "Yes." I studied the murals, seeing their story painted in faded colors. Their mating ceremony. Him placing a crown on her head. The two of them standing before assembled packs, united and strong. Then the final mural. The one that showed her death. Dark figures surrounding her. Kale in beast form, cursed and trapped, howling his grief. "The witch said you'd never know love again," I said softly. "But she was wrong. Because you loved Arya so much that even 300 years couldn't erase it. And now," I turned to face him, "now you're learning to love again. With me." Kale pressed his forehead to mine, and I felt his emotion through our bond. Grief and hope tangled together, past and future colliding in this moment. "I'll never try to replace her," I said. "But I promise I'll honor what you had, and I'll fight for what we're building." He nuzzled into my hair, and I felt his gratitude, his relief that I understood. That I didn't see his past love as competition, but as part of what made him who he was. The third day, we barely left our shelter. The full moon would rise at sunset, and the anticipation was electric between us. Every touch felt charged. Every glance held promise and fear in equal measure. "Are you scared?" I asked as we lay together on the furs, my back pressed to his warm bulk. One paw raised. "Yes." "Me too." I turned to face him, running my fingers through his dark fur. What if it doesn't work? What if the curse is too strong? He couldn't write from this position, so instead he did something else. He closed his eyes and concentrated, and I felt him reach through our bond, not with words, but with emotion. Pure and clear. Worth the risk. For you. Always for you. Tears slipped down my cheeks. I wish I could hear your voice again. Really hear it, not just those few words you managed before. His eyes opened, and in them I saw everything he wanted to say. All the words he'd stored up for 300 years. All the promises he wanted to make. "Tell me after," I whispered. "When you're free. Tell me everything." The sun began to set, painting the valley in shades of amber and rose. And as the light shifted, I felt it, the pull of the moon, even before she rose. My wolf stirred, restless and eager. "Tonight," she whispered. "Tonight we claim our mate." Kyle felt it too. He rose and moved to the entrance, watching the sky. I joined him, pressing against his side as we waited for the full moon to breach the horizon. "Kale," I said quietly, "no matter what happens tonight, whether the curse breaks or doesn't, I want you to know something." He looked down at me, those golden eyes full of question. "I love you," I said simply. "Not the king you were, not the human you might become, but you, exactly as you are right now. Beast or man or something in between. You're mine, and I'm yours." The sound he made was broken and beautiful, and then he was shifting, fighting the curse with everything he had. For just a moment, he was human enough to cup my face with a partially formed hand, human enough to press his forehead to mine, human enough to whisper in that rough, unused voice, "My mate, my Sarah, my salvation." Then the moon rose, full and bright and powerful, flooding the valley with silver light. And Kale threw back his head and howled, a sound of challenge, of defiance, of desperate hope. The curse shuddered around him, 300 years of dark magic straining against the force of our bond. I shifted too, letting my wolf free, and added my voice to his. Together we sang to the moon, calling on every old power that still lingered in this forgotten place. Break, I commanded the curse. He's suffered enough. We're meant for each other. Break. The magic in the valley responded, swirling around us in visible currents of light. The ancient stones began to glow. The very air hummed with power. Kyle's form wavered, caught between shapes, and I saw the curse fighting back, dark tendrils trying to drag him back into beast form permanently. No! I shifted back, throwing my arms around him even as his body convulsed. You don't get to keep him! He's mine! The mate bond flared between us, golden and fierce. And I understood suddenly what needed to happen. The bond wasn't complete just because we declared it. It required action, commitment, the kind of trust that made you vulnerable. I looked into Kyle's shifting eyes and said the words that would either save us or doom us both. I accept you as my mate, in this life and every life after. I bind myself to you, freely and completely. The moon's light intensified, focused on us like a spotlight. And Kale, with supreme effort, forced his form to stabilize just enough to speak the response. I accept you as my mate, in this life and every life after. I bind myself to you, freely and completely. The curse screamed. Chapter 10. Breaking the Chains. The sound was unholy, like metal tearing, like souls being ripped apart, like 300 years of agony given voice. The curse manifested as black smoke, writhing around Kale's body, trying to drag him down, to force him back into the beast form that had been his prison. But our bond burned brighter. Golden light poured from where our hands joined, spreading across Kale's shifting form. I felt the mate bond snap into place fully, not just emotional, not just spiritual, but physical. A tether between our souls that nothing could sever. Fight it! I screamed over the roar of battling magic. Kyle, fight! His body convulsed, muscles bulging and shrinking, fur appearing and vanishing. The curse was losing, but it wouldn't go quietly. It had fed on his pain for 3 centuries. It had sustained itself on his isolation, his grief, his belief that he would never be free. But he wasn't isolated anymore. He wasn't alone. We're here, my wolf snarled, pressing against the bond. Fight for us. Kyle's golden eyes found mine, and in them I saw determination crystallize. He reached for me with a hand that was finally, fully human, scarred and trembling, but unmistakably his true form. His fingers closed around mine, and he pulled me against him as the curse made its final, desperate assault. The black smoke tried to separate us, tried to tear me away. But I held on, wrapping myself around Kale as his body completed its transformation. Fur became skin, bronze and marked with the scars of his long imprisonment. His body elongated, becoming unmistakably male and human. His face emerged from the beast form, strong jaw, high cheekbones, those devastating golden eyes now set in human features. He was beautiful, broken and scarred and absolutely beautiful. Sarah, he gasped, his voice raw but real. Hold on to me. Always, I promised. The curse made one last attempt, sending tendrils of darkness toward his throat, toward the place where the witch had first spoken her words of binding. But the mate bond was complete now, sealed by our vows and our choice and our absolute refusal to be separated. The golden light of our bond met the darkness, and the curse shattered. The sound of its breaking echoed through the valley like thunder. The black smoke dissipated, screaming as it went, and suddenly the oppressive weight that had hung over this place for 300 years was simply gone. Kale collapsed, taking me with him. We hit the soft moss, tangled together, both of us shaking with exhaustion and exhilaration. Did it work? I gasped. Are you free? His voice broke on the word. God, Sarah, I'm free. I pulled back just enough to see him properly. to take in every detail of the man I'd only glimpsed in visions and murals. His dark hair fell past his shoulders, wild and tangled. His body was powerful, corded with muscle earned through centuries of survival. And his face, strong and proud, yes, but softened now with wonder. "You're real," I whispered, touching his cheek, his jaw, his lips. "You're actually here. I'm here." He caught my hand and pressed it over his heart, his racing, very human heart. "Because of you. You saved me." "We saved each other," I corrected. Then he was kissing me, and it was nothing like the gentle nuzzles we'd shared when he was beast. This was fire and desperation, and 300 years of loneliness finally breaking. His mouth claimed mine with a hunger that made my wolf howl in triumph, and I kissed him back with equal fervor. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Kale pressed his forehead to mine in our familiar gesture. But this time, I felt the warmth of his skin instead of fur. Felt his breath against my lips. Felt every hard plane of his body pressed against mine. "The bond isn't complete yet," he murmured, his voice low and rough. "Not in all ways." Heat flooded through me. "I know. I want you." His hand slid to my hip, possessive and reverent. "I've wanted you since the moment you touched me without fear. But Sarah, if you need time, if this is too fast..." I silenced him with another kiss, pouring everything I felt through the bond. My desire, my certainty, my absolute lack of doubt that this was right. "I've been yours since the moment I chose to stay," I said against his mouth. "Make me yours in every way. Please." The word broke his restraint. Kyle's kiss turned fierce, demanding, and I met him with equal passion. His hands roamed my body, learning every curve, every sensitive place that made me gasp. And I explored him in turn. The hard muscle of his shoulders, the scars that marked his chest, the evidence of his long imprisonment that somehow made him more real, more precious. We came together under the full moon, on the soft moss of the valley floor, with ancient magic humming approval around us. The physical joining was intense and overwhelming, made more powerful by the mate bond that amplified every sensation, every emotion. When Kale finally claimed me fully, I felt the bond complete itself with an almost audible click. Gold light flared around us one final time, sealing us together in a way that transcended the physical. "Mine." His wolf growled through our connection. "Ours," my wolf answered. "Forever," we agreed as one. Afterward, we lay tangled together, both trembling with the magnitude of what had just happened. Kyle held me like I was precious, pressing kisses to my hair, my forehead, my lips. "I love you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. I thought I'd forgotten how to say those words, how to mean them. "But you taught me, Sarah. You taught me how to hope again." "I love you too," I whispered. "My king, my mate, my home." He made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob, and held me tighter. I was king once, had armies and territories and power, but none of it meant anything without someone to share it with, without love. "What do we do now?" I asked, reality slowly creeping back in. "Garrett will return. The packs will come looking. And now that you're free, now that the curse is broken, let them come." Kyle's voice hardened with resolve. "I spent 300 years hiding in this valley, letting the world forget me. No more. If they want to challenge our bond, they'll learn why I was once called the Alpha King." I propped myself up on my elbow, studying his fierce expression. "You want to reclaim your throne. I want to protect my mate." He cupped my face tenderly. "And I want to make sure no pack ever treats an Omega the way yours treated you. No more casting out the vulnerable. No more forced matings. The old laws need to return. The ones that valued every wolf, regardless of rank. That's a revolution you're talking about. Yes. His smile was sharp and dangerous. And you, my moon-blessed mate, will stand beside me as we reshape the wolf world. If you choose. There was that word again. Choose. I thought about the girl I'd been just weeks ago. Broken, afraid, convinced she was worthless. And I thought about who I'd become. A wolf in her own right, mated to a king, strong enough to fight for what was right. I choose us, I said firmly. I choose to fight, and I choose to show every Omega out there that they have worth, power, and the right to determine their own fate. Kale's answering smile was brilliant. Then his expression shifted, becoming heated once more. The full moon lasts all night, he murmured, rolling us so I was beneath him again. And we have 300 years of lost time to make up for. I laughed, pulling him down for another kiss. Then we'd better get started. The valley had been a prison, then a sanctuary. Now it would be our launching point, the place where two outcasts became something more powerful than any pack could imagine. But that was tomorrow's battle. Tonight was ours.